The ad hoc committee probing allegations of criminal infiltration and political interference in South Africa's criminal justice system took a dramatic turn this afternoon as a former national police commissioner exposed what he described as serious corruption, implicating Fikile Mbalula. What initially appeared to some as political noise has now evolved into a moment of reckoning, with explosive testimony bringing renewed scrutiny to the highest levels of government and the security cluster. What began almost dismissively when Lieutenant Ailnele Mkhwanazi first lifted the lid on alleged hidden corruption has steadily grown into a far-reaching scandal. Events that once seemed isolated are now converging into a disturbing picture of systemic interference, power abuse, and accountability deliberately avoided. Fikile Mbalula, who has been vocal about witnesses appearing before the ad hoc committee, has now found himself at the center of the controversy. As these revelations continue to unfold, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more news. Former Acting Police Commissioner Khomotso Phahlane appeared before the ad hoc committee probing allegations of criminal infiltration and political interference in the criminal justice system, delivering testimony that added weight to growing concerns about how senior appointments within the South African Police Service were handled. His appearance was not merely procedural. It was laden with unresolved grievances, long-standing frustrations, and claims of deliberate obstruction. Phahlane told the committee that, much like Mkhwanazi, he had waited for years for an opportunity to openly address issues affecting the justice and security cluster. He explained that he had hoped to present these concerns before the Zondo Commission, believing it to be the most appropriate platform for such disclosures. However, that opportunity never materialized. According to him, his attempts were ignored, and his voice was effectively sidelined at a time when critical decisions about leadership and integrity within SAPS were being made. I was not removed by the President of the Republic of South Africa as the Constitution and Police Act dictate. I was made to step aside by Fikile Mbalula, the Minister of Police then. No law provides for such, said General Khomotso Phahlane. This assertion struck at the heart of the legal framework governing the removal or suspension of a national police commissioner. Phahlane's testimony suggested that established constitutional and legislative procedures were bypassed, replacing lawful process with political discretion. He went on to explain to the ad hoc committee that the manner of his removal was abrupt, unclear, and deeply unsettling. Phahlane recounted how then Police Minister Fikile Mbalula summoned him to Cape Town, where he waited for several hours before being granted a brief meeting. In that short interaction, he was allegedly informed that he needed to step aside due to negative media coverage. No formal charges were presented, no internal disciplinary process was outlined, and no legal justification was provided. According to Phahlane, Mbalula offered no guidance on what would follow, no timeline, and no explanation of his rights or obligations. He was simply told to go home. This lack of procedural clarity, Phahlane suggested, was not an oversight, but part of a broader pattern of governance where power was exercised without accountability or adherence to the law. I was a guinea pig of the step-aside policy. With this statement, Phahlane framed his experience as a test case for a practice that would later become common in political and administrative circles. However, unlike later applications of such policies, his removal, he argued, had no legal foundation and no formal policy backing at the time it was enforced. By describing his experience as illegal, Phahlane directly challenged the legitimacy of the decision taken against him and raised questions about how many other officials may have been subjected to similar treatment. The testimony did not end with procedural grievances. Phahlane went further, introducing financial allegations that intensified the seriousness of his appearance before the committee. He disclosed details of a R24 million tender, plus interest, paid to a service provider that allegedly failed to deliver a single camera to the police. This revelation immediately drew attention, as it touched on one of the most persistent problems within the public sector, the misuse of public funds through irregular procurement processes. Former Acting National Police Commissioner Khomotso Phahlane explained that the payment in question occurred during the 2018-19 financial year. He told the committee that this payment later became the basis for his dismissal, despite the fact that he was not in office when the decision to pay the service provider was made. At that time, he emphasized he had already been at home since June 1st, 2017, following his forced step aside. The implication of this claim was profound. If accurate, it would suggest that responsibility for the controversial payment was wrongly attributed to him, while those who actually authorized the settlement escaped scrutiny. Phahlane's account painted a picture of scapegoating, where blame was strategically placed to protect other interests within the system. "If I'm to be dismissed for $24 million, it's not me." That decision was taken in 2018-19 by the sitting national commissioner, who decided to settle with the service provider, Phahlane said. This statement directly challenged the rationale behind his dismissal and called into question the integrity of disciplinary processes within SAPS and the Ministry of Police. As his testimony unfolded, it became increasingly clear that Phahlane viewed his experience not as an isolated incident, but as part of a broader culture of manipulation and selective accountability. He suggested that political considerations outweighed legal principles and that decisions were made to serve expedient narratives rather than the truth. His appearance echoed themes raised by other witnesses, reinforcing concerns that the criminal justice system had been compromised by internal power struggles and external political pressure. The ad hoc committee's mandate to investigate criminal infiltration and political interference suddenly felt more urgent and relevant. Phahlane's evidence connected personal experience with systemic issues, illustrating how governance failures at the top could filter down and weaken institutions meant to uphold the rule of law. His testimony also placed renewed focus on the role played by political principles in operational matters that should, by law, remain independent. Public reaction to these revelations has been intense, reflecting widespread frustration with corruption and perceived impunity among political elites. For many South Africans, Phahlane's account resonated with long-standing suspicions that accountability is unevenly applied and that powerful figures are often insulated from consequences. The mention of Fikile Mbalula, a prominent political figure, only heightened the sense that the committee's work could have far-reaching political implications. As proceedings continue, the ad hoc committee faces mounting pressure to thoroughly interrogate these claims and follow evidence wherever it leads. Phahlane's testimony has not only reopened questions about his own removal, but has also reignited debate about how senior appointments are influenced, how tenders are managed, and how responsibility is assigned when things go wrong. The unfolding developments suggest that what once seemed like fragmented allegations are now forming a coherent narrative of institutional failure. Whether this moment will lead to genuine accountability remains to be seen, but the testimony delivered has already shifted the tone of the inquiry. It has reminded the nation that behind bureaucratic decisions are real consequences for governance, public trust, and the credibility of the justice system. As South Africans watch the ad hoc committee's work, the stakes are clear. The revelations emerging are not just about individuals, but about the health of democratic institutions and the rule of law. The coming days will determine whether these hearings mark another fleeting scandal or a turning point where long-buried truths finally compel action.